So this is an interesting story Rabbi is going to tell you um, about a young lady who was Jews for Jesus, and she attended a synagogue that Rabbi was at. The mother was concerned and wanted Rabbi to speak with her, but the daughter was not willing. But it was a great story, and the conclusion is just choice. Enjoy.
I'm going to tell you the craziest story. Crazy. I think I was all this one. So I was lecturing at Duke University. This goes back years ago. So I was a speaker at Duke for a whole series of programs. And that Shabbat, so I don't remember exactly the circumstance. So let's say I spoke at Duke on Thursday. Maybe I did another program on Monday. I don't remember. Whatever it was, I spoke at Duke. And I also spoke at a synagogue in that area. Okay. Here's the key. So I spoke at Duke. The programs went great. Many of the professors showed up. Professors of biblical text, some of them really quite well known. So Friday night, I do a program at a synagogue, not far from the university. Prior to my presentation on Friday, the rabbi called me into his office and said to me, Rabbi Singer, I just want you to understand this. There's a woman who, a congregant, a member of our congregation, her daughter is involved is become a Jew for Jesus, became a Christian. What could we do? I said, well, could we set up so I can meet with her? I could sit down with her. I'm here the whole weekend. So anytime, let's set it up. And I'll be glad to answer her questions, whatever it was. Okay. The rabbi speaks to the mother, and the girl adamantly will not talk to me. She's not interested. She will not speak to me. She won't. Refuses. So I told the rabbi to ask the mother, will she attend my Friday night lecture? So I was speaking at that synagogue Friday night. Will she at least attend the lecture? So to meet with me, and the girl agreed. And sure enough, after services and after Kiddush, whatever, so the audience is seated. It was a fairly large audience. And the rabbi comes over to me. I was near the stage. And he says, you see, like in the second to the last row on the left side, see that woman there? Yeah. So the girl next to her, that's the girl. Okay, that's the girl. I said, thank you. Okay. And the lecture I gave Friday night, that evening, with the mother and the daughter in the audience, daughter who would not meet with me, refused to meet with me. The lecture I gave that night is how missionaries altered the Jewish scriptures in order to make these passages appear Christological. So the lecture I delivered that evening, Friday night, was how the New Testament writers changed the Hebrew Bible, corrupted them in order to make it appear Christological. And after the program was over, people just came over to me. So there was like a crowd around me, which usually happens after a lecture. There's always going to be a crowd around me. People want to just say hi to me, introduce themselves to me, maybe make a comment, maybe ask a question. So someone's talking to me here, and I could see the girl right there, and she's watching this. The girl is now in the crowd, and she's just staring at me and the people I'm interacting with. As I'm speaking to this crowd, and the girl I could see from the corner of my eye is watching, she's very close to me, just watching it. A professor, he introduces himself, he's a professor of New Testament from Duke, okay, who I know. He's a fairly famous guy. He goes up and he says, Rabbi, you know who I am. I'm a professor of New Testament at Duke, and it was a pleasure to see you. And I just want you to know, even though, I'm a Christian, I want you to know that everything that you taught is completely true. It's absolutely correct. And, I thanked him very much. He was a really, really sweet fellow. Well, I wasn't shocked to hear that because professors of New Testament, even those who might regard themselves as Christians, know all this stuff. They know this. They know the massive problems. Okay, they will not use the terms I use, like malevolent, corruptions. Some will, but most will not use that. That kind of assigning that kind of motivations just doesn't swing it in the academic world. People don't talk that way. I do. But the girl was flabbergasted, and she turned to him and said, "Wait, you're a professor of New Testament at Duke, and you're saying that everything the rabbi taught tonight is correct?" And he said, "Absolutely. Everything he said was right on the money. It was really rudimentary stuff." I mean, is this not the craziest thing that can happen? Like this is like a movie scene, right? So I have a New Testament professor in front of me at Duke. Well, Duke is like one of the finest universities in the United States. I mean, whatever, okay? These are very serious people. And she was just appalled. She was shocked. And the reason I think she was shocked was because she figures, as I think many Christians think, is, well, I might not know the answer, but I'm sure there's someone out there that does. And as long as they do, then I'm fine with that. But to hear a guy who's professor at Duke of New Testament, it wasn't like he's a professor of economics. The girl is so shocked by what the professor said that she agrees to meet with me on Shabbos afternoon, because so on Sabbath, the next day, I'm, after services, I speak at occasion. And then I had another lecture in the late afternoon, but she agreed to meet with me at, I don't remember, Saturday afternoon sometime on the Sabbath. She met with me with the rabbi at the temple in his office, and we just spoke, and she did tshuva. She left the church, and she left for Israel in a couple of weeks and went off to study at a yeshiva in Jerusalem. So that's mind-blowing. So what happens is, now there are many, many New Testament scholars that don't believe in any of the core teachings of Christianity at all. Some do, but they tend to be very, very, very liberal. Very liberal. And then the fundamentalist Christian scholars, how do they work it out? It's very difficult for them to, because they understand, to some degree, they understand the problem. It depends on, but if their PhD is in New Testament or something directly related, they have to come up with some very convoluted explanations to get around these things. Very often they're going to have to use rabbinic kind of literature, find some way to do it. And some of them, to their credit, who are evangelical fundamentalists, agree that there are problems in the Christian Bible that are so insurmountable that they'll say, I don't have an answer to it. And I can think of a few people like that. So the vast majority of New Testament scholars in the universities will admit that everything I'm saying is correct. Everything I'm saying is correct. If you want to find Christians who will say that I'm a liar, that you go to a Sunday school, a high school teacher who teaches New Testament at some Christian schools. They'll call me every name in the world, but they're not real scholars. The serious guys will go, these are real serious issues that have to be addressed, and in more frequently than that, will say absolutely correct. Because really what I teach here, this is not complicated stuff. And I'm not, using inferences or using the church fathers, because I know that there are many of you who are watching me right now and listening to my voice right now, that you're trying to decide if you're going to be a Jew or a Christian, right? Like everything's at stake. So this is not a time for me to start quoting other people. I go right to the text and I explain what's actually going on. So that's how they deal with it. I could tell you so many stories about this happening. In the Philippines, you guys like stories. I was lecturing in Manila at a premier Christian college. In fact, there's a video of me speaking there. But this Christian college, I don't want to go too long with this. This Christian college had a graduate level thing. You can even get a PhD there. A lot of famous New Testament scholars and preachers graduate from this college. I forget the name of it. And I've lectured there a number of times. And they really were very nice to me, always very nice. And there was a guy who came late to lecture, so he didn't see my introduction. And he was in the graduate school, graduate level, and he raised his hand to me. He must have thought I was a Christian. And he asked me, how do you explain the Trinity? It's just impossible to explain it. Like, how do you? He must have thought I was messianic. I don't know what the heck he thought, but he didn't get the memo. I mean, is this insane? You can't even make this up. So I'm in the Philippines. I'm in the Far East. I'm in Manila at a premier Christian university. Okay, where it's not easy to get in, like top. Okay, and a graduate student comes late to the lecture. The place was packed. He doesn't know that I'm an Orthodox rabbi. I don't know what he thought, but he must have thought I was messianic or something. I don't know, whatever. It was a big room, place was packed. I mean, he didn't see my kippah. And he said that I can't explain the Trinity because it doesn't make sense. How do you explain it? They really struggle with this stuff, okay? They really, really struggle with this stuff. The problem is that Christians are taught since childhood that, Jesus loves you and you're going to go to heaven if you believe in him and go to hell if you don't believe in him. And what they then do is they are very familiar. If they're pastors, they have much more familiarity with the Christian Bible than the Hebrew Bible, Lavdil. And what they do is once they start going into the Hebrew Bible, they're just reading it through the Christian filters, through a Christian theological grid. And the Christian translators are very happy to help by mistranslating everything. So that's really what's happening. But the highest level in the academic world, they absolutely know that everything I'm telling you is nonsensical, and it doesn't say virgin. I say 7:14, and Hosea 11:1 is ripped out of context, and Matthew 2:15. They know this. What I teach here generally is fairly rudimentary stuff. This is not complicated, and it's not controversial at all. Anyways, thank you for your question.
If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there is a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.